Hello again, everyone. I know it's been a while since I've done a book review, but it's taken me a little time concentrating on this book, other little things in life, but here I am. And so with that, for this book review, if you are not interested in books or book reviews in general, have a good day. But if you're here to be slightly entertained, potentially learn something new, or you're just kind of curious about certain books, well, you're in the right spot. And with that, my book talk book review is going to be about this book right here, Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson. Now, for those of you who don't know who Jordan Peterson is, he's probably one of the most popular public intellectuals today. He also wrote another book called 12 More Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, which I also possess and I did a review a long time ago. But it kind of acts with this book like a little yin-yang sort of deal, right? The yin-yang symbol, the dark and the light, good, evil, however you wish to see it, that duality. It'd have been cool if I had that other book in my hand right now. However, they each are a standalone book as well, so you don't have to get the two together. Anyway, I was digressing. Jordan Peterson is known for his books, his lectures, tackling the difficult problems of the day. And as he was writing this book, not only was this pandemic happening, but his wife Tammy was battling cancer and for a few months was literally on the verge of death every single day. And then he himself was on benzodiazepines, partly due to depression, to the overwhelm of what he was doing with his public talks. He got addicted, and then he was going through a process called akathisia, which is uncontrollable movements. And he had to deal with pain. They ended up taking him all the way to Russia to treat him. And now he's slowly but surely getting back into the swing of things. And now when it comes to the book, I'm going to give a brief overview of the book. I'm going to go into my 3 favorite laws in the book. And then I'm going to give my rating at the very end. First things first, we start with the overall book. As the title says, 12 more rules for life. The first book had 12, and they're all rules to help people within the chaos of life. For example, you have rule number 1, do not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievement. And he discusses how, while on one hand, we have to change institutions, fact is, the institutions and our ideas and everything, the way we live, it's come down from our past and it's trickled down to today. And that's just one rule, going all the way to rule 12, which I will talk about more in my top 3 rules. In the book itself, it says beyond order, and I suppose it's to add steps to how one can take advantage of chaos. Though I will admittedly say that his other book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, was more about structuring and getting order together. Whereas this book, I thought it was going to be a little bit more wild, have all kinds of rules that make you fight outside of order. But it's more about taking the next step once you've established some order. And it's just spread throughout the book, all kinds of stories using his personal accounts, some of his clinical patients, stories like Pinocchio, the myths of our history. He uses a wide range of information, and I truly appreciate it. And it's stuffed throughout this book, which leads me into my 3 favorite rules of the 12. And these are my 3 favorite rules. Rule number 9, if old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. Rule number 12, be grateful in spite of your suffering. And rule number 2, imagine what you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. So I'll start with rule number 9. When it comes to our memories, it was really cool because I've seen it before. But in this rule, Jordan Peterson goes over why we need to establish a connection with our past. Right? Many of us are living with trauma. Many of us are living with questions that we have no answers for. We're always searching for, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did this happen to me? You see, Jordan Peterson, through quite a few accounts, he himself being a clinical psychologist, he talks about his patients, remaining anonymous, of course, and how they had to go through these difficulties and they had to make peace with their past. And he describes the process of needing to write these memories down because though we have our present, as we look towards the future, we have a past that many of us are reconciled with. And what we all try to do is we try to establish a timeline of continuity. We have to know who we are now and who we could be as we head towards the future. But to know who we are, or who we think we are, we take into account our past experiences. And if there's something there that we haven't figured out, or we haven't solved, well, that's what we write our memories down for. Now, of course, there is repression, there's pushing those memories away, there's the fact that memory can be a faulty thing. But many people just don't want to deal with the emotions or deal with the pain, right? Because some people imagine, like, if you release the anger and all the sadness and the things that you have from your past, that's the thing you need. You need that emotional release. It might be true, but Jordan Peterson says it's about answering the why questions. Why did this happen? And the story you have now is probably going to be a little bit different than your account when you were in the past at that time. But it's about putting those puzzle pieces together to make sense of your own life, to go forward. So I really appreciated that rule because it's something I haven't really done a whole lot of. I've written about my past, but to take every single memory and make that causal line, that causal chain, that was very cool to see. And that's rule number 9. Rule number 12, be grateful in spite of your suffering. What? Suffering? Pain? Be grateful for it? What are you talking about? I imagine that's many people listening to that rule. But what I really appreciate about what Jordan Peterson does is he uses different stories. For example, he talks about the book Faust, which is about a man who traded his soul for eternal knowledge and love and all the pleasures of the world. He also goes into different accounts about funerals, death, different topics of that sort. And he even throws in, I hope I quote this right, from Matthew 27:46 of the Bible. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And he makes an interesting point about that quote. He says, look, Jesus, being part of the Holy Trinity, being God himself, suffered. How are we as human beings supposed to be grateful or overcome that suffering? Well, Peterson goes on to explain that we, in a sense, have to do it because it's the right thing. It's the courageous thing. And that in turn leads to love and leads to truth. And of course, he lists in the book that we have many reasons why we're going to sit in suffering, why we could hate the world, why we have so many problems. But he says something interesting in rule number 12. He says, we hate many people or we dislike people because of their limitations. But it's the same reason that we love them. Because they're not the supermen, because they're not superheroes, because they have their limitations as fallible human beings. He also, when it goes to the death part, he talks about how he feels that one of the ways that one can express courage during a funeral is to be the one who's most reliable during the procedure, being strong after, and taking care of the friends and the family members surrounding the death or the tragedy. And I felt that was really cool. It's very powerful. And I don't know if that is enough to convince certain people about their own pain and their suffering, but I think it's a very interesting rule to go off of. And so I reach for it. I'm reaching for that gratitude. And if I remember correctly, he defines gratitude as the courageous and conscious attempt to bring thankfulness in the face of the suffering of life. Very powerful indeed to me. That's rule number 12. And then rule number 2 is one of my favorites as well. Imagine what you could be and aim single-mindedly at that. Of course, there are many aspects of life. We got our friends, we've got our family, we've got our hobbies, we've got a career, we've got different things that we have to aim for. Well, Jordan Peterson again inserts a lot of our myth and our stories into the picture, using the Enuma Elish, which was a 4,000-year-old story from Mesopotamia. 4,000-year-olds written, but many, many more years older than that when it comes to the oral tradition. He talks about that mythology. He even talks about Harry Potter and certain Disney stories, which I found to be quite cool and fascinating, to explain what Quidditch is about, to explain that Harry Potter had to catch the golden snitch, which is like the round chaos of life. That was very cool for him to put that in there. And in the end, he discusses how we have to aim for something. We have goals. We have dreams, and we may not attain exactly that thing that we're looking for. But when we aim for something, we can make ourselves better people. We're not going to become perfect, but when we aim for something, we take care of ourselves. And when we get better as people, that passes on to our friends and our family. And then that passes on to the community. And perhaps it would influence the world. And that is rule number 2, to aim for something great. It's not about the end goal or point. It's just about the process of discovery. Sometimes you're going to be heading headstrong. Sometimes you're going to get smacked in the face. Sometimes you're going to take 2 steps back. Then you get to take 3 steps forward. But in the end, it's about the journey of life. The aim for the hero, the aim for the stories that we've been using for generations and generations. Those are my 3 favorite laws. And with that, I'm going to give my brief review. I enjoyed the book. I'm going to give it out of 10. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I love the source. He pulls from a wide variety of sources. It's fitting for his book Beyond Order because he takes all of them and he puts it all together and makes sense of everything and as to why these rules are so important to live by. Now, if I was going to give a slight criticism, I'm very generous on book reviews. Slight criticism, I think he could have been more cohesive with his material. I think sometimes he has Disney stories in one chapter, they come back in another chapter. So it seems like this material is still kind of like thrown into random chapters rather than rule number 1. Rule number 2, this material. Rule number 3, we're going to talk about this. Could have been more cohesive in that part. And also, as a little side note, if someone's a little more practical or just sees life like in a simple, this is the way it is, it's this way or the highway, they might not appreciate the book because he goes deep into topics that, well, most people probably wouldn't even think have that sort of depth. And so for one who needs it straightforward, he definitely can get a little complicated. But I appreciate it because it really resonates on a deeper level. And with that, that is my review of Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. Highly recommend the purchase and his book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. I thank you for watching this. Any questions, comments, or concerns are wonderful and they're highly appreciated. And if you liked it, hey, let me know. If you didn't, I accept it too. That is my book review. I'm trying to get more and more up. So, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.